Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We are doing an interview today with Kasim Tariq. So, brother, my first question to you is, can you tell us more about yourself in terms of your art journey? Where did it begin exactly?
Sure. So I spent a lot of my time growing up doing works in the trade. So I did carpet fitting and working in construction, and ultimately that led me to studying interior architecture and design at Coventry University. Um, and alhamdulillah, I did really well, managed to exhibit my work. But when I came back to Bradford, I saw the niche, and that there were no real art studios and that kind of stuff up north. So I kind of spent the last 5 years opening up an art studio called Fayykunu, and we'll be teaching woodworking, pottery, and loads of other stuff. And literally, it's taken me um, it's taken me all the way through making the studio before I can actually get back into my creative artwork again. In 2023, I was lucky enough to have a commission where we created a sculpture in City Park, and it looked at the migrant community, how they came to Bradford, how they worked in the mills, and it used the Lister Mills chimney as kind of a meeting point where we looked at both the communities that came here as well as the communities that were already here and how they both worked in tandem with each other to create societies. So we've got different eras, and each part of the sculpture looked at a different point in time. And it was kind of making us look back at where we'd come from and the journey that we've had living in this country together, uh, just to kind of figure out where we're going. And that was in 2023. And then since then, I've kind of been working on my own artistic practice, getting into woodworking again and pottery and some other kind of art forms. But yeah, that's kind of my journey.
Amazing, tabarakallah. So that leads me on to my next question. Can you tell us more about this, the specific the specific work that you were exhibiting with us? Is there like a material or technique that you're used, or is there something that has inspired this piece?
Sure. So working on the piece that I've created, which is basically it's taking some exotic wood from Mexico called prota wood, and it's loads of different techniques involved. We're looking at fine woodworking, joinery. You're looking at French polishing the table, and even within those processes, there's different arts that are involved. And rather than pouring my own kind of creative energy into this piece and trying to impose what I thought it should be, I really looked at the natural grains, what the wood really wanted to be itself. I was heavily inspired by Japanese low furniture and the idea that lowering yourself closer to the ground, it's an act of humility and connection with the ground and where you are. Um, and I feel that a lot of architecture, a lot of furniture nowadays has kind of really taken us away from that. And then when we look at the material, a lot of my work's about being really honest with material and how things are constructed. So the table itself features exposed structural elements. So rather than hiding them way underneath the table and having little screws underneath, it's all very honest. You can see exactly how it's put together and what makes up the table. It's all woodwork, and even in the finishing, for example, there's no chemicals. Um, there's nothing that is really negative to the people that will be interacting with the piece or the environment. And a lot of people look at durability and think that, okay, well, if this material lasts for a long time, it must be really good. But the truth is, when we interact with a lot of these MDF pieces of furniture and things like that, we're actually rubbing off plastic on our fingertips, and it's not a natural experience. And a lot of my work is about bringing people back in touch with material, with nature, grounding themselves, in humility. And I think a lot of that is lost when we came to this country to live here. We adopted the Western sofa and the Western chairs and the Western way of living. And this isn't going all the way back, but it's a new middle ground where we accept that, yes, we live with furniture in more luxurious houses, so to speak. But there's a way of reconnecting with the humility of being, in touch with nature and in touch with yourself and the people around you and things like that.
That's a very interesting perspective, especially on furniture as well. Like it's pretty much, just such a fast, industry that, we just get whatever that we like, but then we never really think about the materials that are used to be made and everything, subhanAllah. My next question for you is, can you describe what drives your creative practice? I know you mentioned it earlier as well. Is there something that makes art, or even, in terms of sculpturing and everything, and, designing these furnitures, is it something that is meaningful to you beyond that creative outlet?
Yeah, sure. So with my creative practice, a lot of it is about discovering, what was meant to be. So when I chose the name Fayykunu for our art studio, the whole idea was that God has already said be, and it's up to us to use the resources that are in front of us to make the best of whichever situation that we're in. So he hasn't left us unprepared for whatever situation that there is. And equally, for example, I'm making this table, but that wood took decades to grow, and he was the one providing for it. He knew what was inside that bark before we even took a blade to it and brought it over into this country, and I started working on it. So a lot of my work is rather than trying to impose what I think on this piece of wood, it's really bringing out what was naturally hidden in that wood, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has secrets hidden in so many different things. And for me, working with natural materials, it's uncovering that there's something really special about it. It's like, going on a trip in the mountains and discovering that, a giant, beautiful gem. You've got to really pay attention, you've got to be present whilst you're working to bring that out. So a lot of that is, it's a meditative process. I mean, as a Muslim, you begin with Bismillah and everything becomes a zikr as it is. But it really helps with the reflection of, okay, well, if it takes this much to refine and clean this piece of wood or this piece of material, equally you reflect that on yourself. How much does it take to clean me and clean my heart out? And it is a spiritual experience. You learn a lot from materials. Different materials teach you different things.
Tabarakallah. That's really interesting to hear as well, because we don't think of it that way. That we have to do our own internal healing, our cleaning, and everything. Subhanallah. Was there any big or small moment that kind of defined you as an artist? Where faith and art came together. Something that you realized it was something that you had to pursue, and it kind of shaped who you are today.
Sure. I mean, I think a lot of it was stretched out along my 5 years of trying to discover, well, what is it I'm meant to do? And kind of submitting to that idea of figuring out, well, what is it I'm meant to be? I'm in my process of becoming. Everything is in its state of becoming. So I'm trying to align myself with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted. I started off when I came out of university and I applied for 500 different applications from here to Qatar to Milan, to be an apprentice, to learn from someone. And it did not happen. And it left me thinking, well, if the opportunities aren't there for me to go further afield, then it must mean that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants me to do something where I am already. And on that basis, I saw that there wasn't the facilities or the resources to kind of continue this in the north in Bradford. There weren't the teachers, there wasn't the space, and I took the initiative. So it's been really challenging but rewarding being able to create this facility where now finally after about 4 and a bit years I'm able to create my own artwork again and get back in touch with my creative side. So I believe I'm still in the turning point in all honesty. Inshallah the next year will be very telling.
Inshallah khair. I think a lot of people can relate to the fact that where they try to look for opportunities and then it never kind of goes their way. So it is a perspective as well that, maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has something completely planned for you. And, we always think that, oh, I need to do this, I have to do this, I have to learn to this person, otherwise, I'm not worthy as an artist. But there are so many different paths that we can take, subhanAllah. So in terms of being in the West as well, how do you navigate between being a Muslim and an artist? Has there ever been any tension between those two identities, or have you been able to express them easily?
I've always been quite comfortable as a Muslim and being myself and things, but when it's come to creating spaces like this, there've been instances where I realized that on the outside, being Muslim is, it impacts certain results. And rather than letting that get me down, I've kind of just turned it inwards and made it more about what's going on the spiritual side inside. I mean, there's a lot going on around the world right now, and especially in the UK, and it's difficult for artists to kind of concentrate. While I was making the beacon, um, it was great making the sculpture for City Park, but in all honesty, that's when the Gaza situation kicked off, and it was quite debilitating, emotionally, you know, you've got all of that going on, and you sit there and think, well, all there's all that stuff going on. What's the point of me doing what I'm doing? Um, but you can only do so much, and you can only work in your own community. So there's a lot of internal tension that has come, especially with kind of dealing with these situations that are going on around us. And I think that would probably be my most difficult kind of situation. The fact that you try to just be yourself, but there are all of these external elements, which, they zap away your energy. They stop you from focusing on, the positives and what you're working on and stuff. And it does leave you questioning yourself. But, like I said, I turn inwards. A lot of my work's about stewardship and taking responsibility for what's in front of me and trying to produce things in excellence, with ihsan. We can't fix the world's problems. You can only work with what you've got in front of you. And inshallah, if I can affect the community and help give them some kind of lifeline over here in Bradford, then that's something.
I definitely agree because I know there's a lot of people that resonate with that. They're not sure of, whether they can still continue living their life. But subhanAllah, yeah, it's something I think communities should come together to help support each other and see how we can navigate through it. So we have a few more questions, inshallah. What do you hope that others experience or understand when they encounter your work in this exhibition? What do you want them to know about you as a Muslim artist?
So I think, well, I hope people understand that Muslim artists were not confined to a single visual language or stereotype. There's real beauty in the Islamic heritage arts when we look at calligraphy, when we look at geometry, and there's real depth in the spiritual meaning of those arts. We have been very, very detached from that over the years. Um, and I'd like Muslims to kind of reconnect with artwork, not only by going to view pieces. But I think one thing that we miss out on as Muslims right now is taking stewardship of existing artwork. There are stunning examples of Qurans and manuscripts, and the majority of them are not in the stewardship of Muslims. And that is just a little bit telling of how much we respect our art. If we can't respect the art of old, then it makes it difficult to expect Muslims to respect the coming art from new artists. It also makes it difficult for new artists to kind of have that heritage within them and take that forward, whether it's in contemporary ways or other ways. So I try to keep my work as understated as possible, looking at the material, looking at um, forms. I think one of the key things, and it'll probably go into the next question when you ask me about my favorite quote, but my sheikh, Sheikh Bewley, he said to me something really, really incredible. It just stuck with me, and it was that humans look at objects and we give them meanings. So this is a mug because I use it as a vessel and I put liquid in it and I drink it. Um, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had all of the meanings, and from them He created forms. So everything that we see, just because we don't see the meaning behind it, doesn't mean that there isn't a meaning behind it. And a lot of my work is about discovering that meaning behind the form. And it's changed my dynamics and how I see things, my relationship with the things around me. I'm more aware of the fact that, everything is in constant zikr of Allah, every little thing. And so when I'm working this material, I have to respect the fact that this material is worshipping Allah just the way that I'm worshipping Allah. So when I'm creating it, I'm trying to create it as beautifully as possible because that in itself is an ibadat. I'm becoming something new in the process of this creating. As much as this piece of wood is becoming something new in this creating, it takes a bit of me and it takes a bit of the table away. So yeah.
SubhanAllah. It actually reminds me of a verse as you were speaking from Surah, where it mentions that there will be people that will be sitting, laying down, standing, and they all call out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, saying, "Oh Allah, you did not create all of this without purpose." And I guess we
SubhanAllah.
always forget these small things were created with a deeper meaning. SubhanAllah. So that is it for today. Jazakallah khair for doing this interview with us.
Barakallah fi. Thank you for having us.